Bet the Breeders' Cup with the DRF app. The Daily Racing Form app is a highly rated, powerful tool that makes handicapping and wagering fast and easy, putting you in position to win big at the races. Register today to double your first deposit up to $250. Get the DRF app now.
Hi, Marcus Hersh from the Daily Racing Form, joined by Steve Andersen of the Daily Racing Form. We're going to go through the overseas runners in the Saturday Breeders' Cup races. We're going to take it in race order and at least give you a snapshot of these horses that are participating in what should be a fabulous day of racing at Keeneland. Race 5, Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Not a big race for overseas participants in the main. They haven't done well, and they don't even really bother trying for the most part. The best sprinter in Europe this year, Batash, he was mentioned as a possible, but did not come. And we have got a filly named Glass Slippers, who's a pretty good horse. Give her any chance here, Steve?
A minor chance. Yeah, you mentioned she raced against Batash. You mentioned Batash. She raced against him twice and got within 2 lengths of him at Goodwood back in July. And since then, Glass Slippers has won the big race at the Curragh, which got her an automatic berth into this field, the Flying Type Stakes. And then was a very decent second on a very heavy track at Longchamp in Paris on October 4th. Closed with some interest to just miss by a neck behind Wooded. So I think there's some ability here, but I just think it's a game in which there's so many horses from the United States that specialize in these turf sprint distances around a turn. And as you mentioned in our Friday commentary, this is a group of Europeans who are primarily straightaway runners when they sprint. So this one has every chance in the world, but I'm going to go with a lot of the domestic horses I think look very attractive. So respect to this one, but maybe if you're in a trifecta, superfecta mood.
Yeah, if you really want to get deep in the weeds, Glass Slippers, way back before she even got very good, ran a race at Chester, which, as you very well know, is an amazingly tight turning track. She handled the turns okay there and actually won that race. I think she's pretty good, but, I mean, she's not at Batash's class. He smashed her. He's way better than she is. If he had come, I would be giving serious thought to how he's going to negotiate the turn because he could really win. I didn't pick her in the top 4. I think she could give a go to Conrad herself, but I'm not looking for much more than that. Okay, moving right along, I guess we should mention in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, there are 2 Japanese horses here. It seems like a vanity project to me, and this one in this race, Ping Zhang, is and also eligible, probably won't get to run anyway. He won an allowance race by 17 lengths. You doing anything more than like going on to the next horse with this one, Steve?
No, I don't see him winning the race. He's running in some of the minor. If he got into the field, if he got prize money, I think they'd be happy. He's run at some of the lesser Japanese courses. So yeah. I think even if they draw into the race and they hit the board, well, they're going to claim victory and maybe come back with a better runner next time, or a more mature version of this one at least.
Yeah, I think we can safely say that in race 7, the filly and Mare turf has a much more important contingent of overseas runners to consider, though none from Japan. I'll just list these horses that are participating. Number 3, Peaceful. Number 7, Terabellum. Number 11, I've never heard anyone say her name. I say Audaria.
Audaria?
I'll give it a try. Can't be that far wrong. And number 14, Cayenne Pepper. This is a heck of a race. The Americans are a good group too. I'm really looking forward to this race. I didn't see your selection for this, so I have no idea who you took. Did you pick any Europeans in the top 4 horses?
Yes, I did. My top pick is Civil Union, trained by Shug McGahee, a very progressive filly who has had an excellent year and won the Flower Bowl at Belmont. But the one that I'm really looking forward to watching is Terabellum. Terabellum, trained by John Gosden, I think is better than the race she showed last time on the heavy turf in the Sun Chariot Stakes at a mile at Newmarket. She was 53. Do you agree? Do you think that one might be a little bit better than that race looks?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think she liked the heavy ground at all, do you?
No, and the race that really caught my eye was the second by a head in the Queen Anne Stakes against Bales at Royal Ascot back in June. Yeah. She'd won her prep race at Newmarket earlier that month when the racing got started again in England in early June after the coronavirus break. And this really has really done fairly well. Third in the Falmouth. Kind of wonder if she might really appreciate this longer distance than the 1 mile races she's had in her recent starts.
Yeah, I don't try not to think too much about the Queen Anne since I bet on this horse, and she looked like a sure winner a half furlong out after going past Circus Maximus, who battled back to beat her. And yeah, definitely, you can see she has any number of 1.25 mile races on her form, and I think she'll get the 1 3/16 with a relatively short home stretch, at least by European standards, without issue. I picked her in the top three. I think I picked her third. What about the others? Any fancies among the rest of the group for this race?
I think it's one of the more competitive Breeders' Cup races of the entire weekend, and I strongly like a couple of the other horses, even though they didn't make my top four. That's how strong I think this race really is. Adaria was good third at Paris on October 4th, and she won at Deauville on soft ground. She's also won on some better conditions than that, and she's got a good chance. A little discouraged by Post 11. But then also Cayenne Pepper, trained by Jessica Harrington, a winner in Ireland, stakes winner there in September. She drew 14. That hurt. If she had been a little more inside, I might have said, well, I'll give that one a bit of a long look. But I do think that when you've got the filly I mentioned, Civil Union, and a couple of really classy looking, beautiful fillies from Chad Brown, that's going to be kind of tough for those foreign horses with a wide draw to overcome. But of the three, the ones from the European. Terabellum is the one that I really think can win the race, and certainly commands attention in an exactor, for example, and some other bets like that. I think she could be sitting on a nice race for Gosden.
Yeah, I'll give you my quick takes on these. Cayenne Pepper, I think she's a fine horse, but I don't like her at all because to me, she definitely needs 1.5 miles. She doesn't have a turn of foot. She's more of a grinding type. She's not good enough for the turf, though, so they're trying this race. I mean, I think a mid-pack finish is in order for her. Adaria is kind of amazing how much better she's gotten the last half of this year. I mean, she was 47-1 in the race you mentioned at Deauville, the race that she won over 1.25 miles. I think she didn't quite stay the 1.25 miles on heavy ground against better horses, but she ran a representative race. I just think she's going to get a little bit out quick. She doesn't have quite the turn of foot that these horses stretching out from shorter distances, such as Terabellum that you mentioned. And I have to get to Peaceful, who I picked to win this race and like quite a bit. She's in the same race as Terabellum that you mentioned, Steve, the Sun Chariot, which was run over just a really bad track, and she hated it. She didn't run a step, and when it became apparent that she was getting nothing, Ryan Moore just took care of her and to live to fight another day. I think that if you go back and watch her races throughout this year, she's done almost nothing wrong. She led all the way in the Irish 1000 Guineas and was going away at the end, and what I thought was an excellent performance. She got the wrong trip in the Prix de Diane, the French Oaks. For some reason, she was wrangled back off the pace and got into trouble because of that, finished fastest. I thought she was the best horse in the race. And I don't think that the Matron Stakes was run to suit either, over 1 mile, which I think is going to prove to be a little short of her best. I think she's going to get the 1 3/16. She's got some pace to keep up, and I'm going to bet her to win.
Okay, with you. It's a 6-7 deep race. You could pick several runners like Rushing Fall too, who are an American horse, and some of the ones we mentioned from Europe, and feel like you have a very nice selection along the way.
I agree. A fabulous race. We'll briefly hit in the Breeders' Cup Sprint on another Japanese horse, Jasper Prince, who at this one will at least get a chance to run. I'd see him as a non-contender. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. He has won 5 races over there, but they're all at on the dirt track, and the dirt track races over there for the most part are just a little on the quieter side compared to their lovely turf.
Yeah.
Races. So.
And not just that, but there are like 3 dirt sprint stakes that are graded on the calendar. And he didn't even run in any of the best dirt races there. So I just can't. I can't see it. Now, the Breeders' Cup Mile, I think we can see some serious European action here. We've got, I think, 6 horses. We'll run through them in post-position order. Circus Maximus has the 1. Kamiko has the 2. Lope y Fernandez has the 3. Siskin has the 4. Safe Voyage has the 6. One Master is scratched from this race. She will not be participating. She tied up during training this week and cannot get right in time to run. That allows Order of Australia to drawing off the also eligible list. I don't know if this horse is actually running. Have you seen anything in the last couple hours, Steve?
No, I have not.
Yeah, because he's in the Bryan Station on Friday, and that looks like a much better spot for him. I don't think he'd have any chance from any post, much less from post 14. So how do you rate these European horses, all of whom are pretty good?
Pretty good, but amazingly, like I talked about on the Friday portion about some of the juvenile fillies turf, which has also got a nice mix of domestic and foreign runners. I did the exact same thing. I dismissed all of the European runners and picked 4 domestic horses, which surprised me.
You're a traitor to your
international. Yeah, I know, a traitor to my international assignments. I have to admit that I am probably at fault, and I'll probably lose my credentials. But but to be honest with you, Circus Maximum, he hasn't won since June. A nice race in the Sussex, but even when he was beaten in France in September in the Prix de Moulin on firm turf, he was beaten 7 lengths. And then let's give him the benefit of the doubt for losing at Ascot on October 17th, because that track was terribly muddy. It was so soft it was muddy. So that's fine. But there just aren't enough wins here lately. There aren't enough of the top performances that he had, a year ago when he was 4th in this same race. And but I can't throw him out completely because you got the O'Brien factor. But
throw him out, Steve. Throw him out.
Throw him out. Okay, I did it.
You just made your case for throwing him out. He's not in good form. I'm throwing him out.
Kamiko is probably a Group 2 horse.
Ouch! Really? A Guineas winner?
Well, where's it been since then until the Joel? I just didn't see it.
I will say in the Sussex, he was probably second best in that race. He was completely buried on the rail. When he finally got off the rail, then he ran up the back end of Circus Maximus. He was loaded, it looked like, too. So I think that race is better than the 4th by 3. And in his defense, he's not a 1.5 mile horse. He actually acquitted himself fairly well in the Derby, finishing 4th. And then he just is not good enough or doesn't stay enough to do much in the Juddmonte International. Now, if you want to say he probably should have won a little better in the Joel last time, I could see that.
I'm probably being a little harsh because when you look back on the international stakes at York, you realize he finished behind Gaiath, Magical, and Lord North, all of whom are
pretty good group, right?
Pretty good group. So I'm probably incorrect in being as critical as I was. But
no, I see where you're coming from. I mean, I think we can say he's regarded as a fairly softer Guineas winner in the grand tradition of the race. I think that's fair, and I don't think he's a special horse. I mean, he is very good. Don't get me wrong, but I know where you're coming from. He's not a proper top miler, which is not to say he can't be competitive in this race, and I think he very well might be. But I definitely know what you're saying.
I'm a little discouraged by him drawing post 2. That's going to get messy in this big race and this big field trying to get around from there. If he were 5, 6, or 7, I'd be a little more confident about his chances.
How about the rest of them? Who would be the others? Who would you give any credence to?
Siskin, trained by Gerard Lyons, I think has a good chance. It won the Irish 1000 and was 3rd in the Sussex Stakes at Goodwood. And as we've talked about in the past, Keane, the jockey Colm Keane, was the number 1 rider in Ireland this year, so he fits this mount pretty well. This horse kind of lost his chance in the big French race, the Prix du Moulin de Longchamp, with a bad start on September 6th, and that hurt his chances against a pretty good field that includes Circus Maximus. So I'm a little less critical of him than I have been of some of the others. The post 4 should be good for what looks like it should be a stalking trip, but he's got to get out of the gate. He's got to get a shot. He's got to break with the runners. You can't give him anything at all.
Well, he had a fit in the stalls in that race, and that's the second time he's done that. I believe he was scratched at 2 because he acted up behind the stalls. And the trainer has said this is not behavior that he ever exhibits at home. It's just been a couple times in the races. He also was sweated up, I think, pretty heavily before the Sussex. He could have a touch of anxiety to him. I did see him with some lather coming off the track after training. I mean, the way he won the Irish 2000 Guineas, he had nowhere to go in that race. And he just said, and the jockey too, they're just like, hey, it doesn't matter. We're going to go through the horses. And they had so much force. He was so well meant that day. He just pushed. He opened gaps that weren't there, and it was a pretty amazing win. If he could run like that, I mean, I can't dismiss his chances. Do you know who I picked to win this race?
I do not.
Lope y Fernandez.
Okay. Well, you know how you're the Breeders' Cup Mile expert on our team. You've written about the race for many years. No, in all seriousness, but what's remarkable about it is every year, it seems, there's a 25-1 shot in the first 3, and oftentimes second or third.
That's right.
So who is that horse this year? I think
that's right. You're right on top of it.
I think this. What about Safe Voyage to hit the board?
I have him second.
Okay. Well, he
I
might
like
be
both of those horses as value plays. I went on a radio show, the Steve Bick show that he does a satellite radio show today. And, I followed 2 European people. One, I can't remember his name, and Nick Luck had been on too. Steve Bick said that both of those people picked Lope Fernandez to win.
Oh, okay. So
which is kind of remarkable.
That's funny. I think he's got a good chance. Now, he hadn't won in a while. He won it at Nakura back in 2019, but this year 0 for 6. You get the O'Brien factor, and you just think, well, let's give him another chance. He's been running some super duper nice sprint races over there in England and France. So that's what I'm going to look a little skeptical of your selection with respect.
No. I understand. It's just a guess that he is going to suit a 2-turn race with a relatively short home stretch because he's running nothing but straight course races. He actually went from last to first to take the lead in the 1,000 Guineas that Siskin run and then didn't see it out because that's what happens. But then his second to Pinatubo in the Prix-Jean Prat, Pinatubo was going to be one of the main overseas participants for the mile before he was retired. 2-year-old champion who didn't, progress that. He didn't progress much to 3, but he still was a fine horse. And then his Maurice de Guise was also, I thought, a fine effort. Space Blues ran an incredible race to win. And then he is soft, straight course sprint, 6 furlongs. So that's cutting back too far for him. He needs at least 7, I think. I think he's a 7 furlong horse. And 7 furlong horses sometimes win mile races in America. And Safe Voyage is kind of the same way. He's got a lot of 7 furlong races. He's run turns a lot. I don't see any. He's got some tactical speed. He runs a good race every time. He's in the form of his life, and he's going to be a price. So I think Safe Voyage is worth including in your plans.
That sounds good. Good.
All right. I believe we have one more race of some consequence to talk about. The Breeders' Cup Turf, race 11. The overseas participants: number 2, Magical. Number 3, Tarnawa. Number 4, Medaille. Number 5, Donja. Number 6, Lord North. Surely that's got to be about it. Oh, yeah, number 10, Mogul, trained as Magical is by Aidan O'Brien. So I guess question 1 in this race, are you with the favorite Magical or against the favorite Magical?
Both. I picked her second because I really like Mogul. But one point I want to make real quick about this race, which I've been studying for the last few months, is who's not here. And that's Sotsas, the ARC winner, Gaiath, who was retired, who won the Irish champion, and Enable, who was in this race 2 years ago and was in the ARC last month, but is also retired. So
and Love.
And Love. Thank you very much. That's the 3-year-old filly trained by Aidan O'Brien. If any of those 4 were in this field, I believe they'd be favored. But they're not here. So are we getting the second string? Well, not necessarily. But it just seems like this year's Breeders' Cup Turf is a little bit dented in terms of the overseas quality that we were hoping to see run in this race about 4 to 6 weeks ago. But I do respect Magical. I think you can give her the benefit of the doubt from that 3rd place in the deep track at Ascot on October 17th, when she was in a little bit of traffic trouble at the quarter mile mark, and then still came on to finish behind Adieb, the very nice horse, and a French horse, Scaletti. But I'm really interested to see what Mogul can do with Pierre-Charles Boudot, one of the top French jockeys. We don't see him in the United States very often, if at all.
He's incredible. He's a great jockey.
So that's a check mark to me that O'Brien's got him on this horse. He won the Grand Prix de Paris in a very fine fashion. That race is typically earlier in the year, but with a revamped calendar because of the coronavirus in France, it became a September race this year. I was disappointed he got beat at York in the 1.5 miles.
That was disappointing.
Yeah. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he ran so much better on firm turf at Longchamp last month. You remember he was supposed to be in the ARC, and they had that feed contamination scare with all those O'Brien runners came out. So in a way, they've had to redirect he was peak. Got to figure he was in peak form 4 weeks ago. Now they've had to restart to get to this race. Mogul is my pick over Magical by just a little bit. I've been going against some Europeans all weekend in some very logical spots, but this time I do think they're going to be very, very tough to beat in this BC turf, I think.
I prefer Mogul over Magical too. He was a little disappointing throughout the year. I know there were high hopes for him to be a Derby horse, and he was a Derby horse. He was a 6th place Derby horse. But he was kind of fat for the King Edward at Ascot. He didn't have a good spring at all. None of us did, to be honest. But like he finally started to come right, I thought, in the Gordon Stakes at Goodwood, but then he regressed again in the Great Voltigeur, and with no excuse. He just didn't run very well. I mean, he ran fine, but he didn't continue on the progressive tilt that he showed in the previous start. So, and then I'm kind of two minds about the Grand Prix de Paris. He got such a perfect trip. He stayed on the fence the whole time, and the seas parted for him. I give the jockey credit for that too, but he never had a straw in his path, never lost any momentum, and just kind of flew home. But he finished very well, and the horse In Swoop, who was second, ran a mighty race, I thought, in the Arc to be second. I'll touch on Magical. I thought she got clear in time to do something in the Champion, and she had run. This may have been softer than the year before, but she had beat the same horse that won the race last year over soft ground. And my theory, and I may be wrong, I often am, was that her race in the Irish Champion might have sapped her a little bit because she ran so hard to beat Gaiath that day. They made sure she stayed in touch with him all the way because he wins he's retired. He won his races going to the front and running everyone into the ground. I think that I worry that she's still maybe feeling the effect of that race. And also, a mile and a half in America is not a mile and a half overseas. It's easier for horses to get that race, to get that distance, who aren't truly mile and a half horses. And she's fine at a mile and a half, but I am almost certain that a mile and a quarter is her best distance. And at a short price with those two concerns, I'm trying to beat her. I'll tell you, the horse that I picked to win is another female, the 4-year-old filly, Tarnawa. However, I mean, I wish I knew the correct pronunciation. But I do think that she's the correct horse in this race. She showed signs of being a top class performer before this year, but it wasn't until this fall that she really came to herself. I just think she was a late maturing type. I thought she won last time over a mile and a quarter on heavy ground. When she's probably a mile and a half horse who wants firmer going, just shows how good this horse is doing, and she really finished that race off nicely to beat a good horse in Alpine Star. And her 3-length win over Rabiha, who was a very good 3-year-old filly, was getting some weight from her in the Prix Vermeil. I thought it was an excellent performance. I do think she's going to get bet a little bit, but still will be decent value. And I'm going to bet her to win the Breeders' Cup Turf.
Did you pick her as your first selection?
She is my top choice.
Top choice. Well, she's won 5 of her last 6, and like you said, the progression's there. What's interesting is she had a free berth to the filly and mare turf.
That's right.
From the win in the Prix de l'Opera, and yet they've chosen this race. Well, I think it makes sense because it's a mile and a half, whilst the other race is a mile and 3/16. And she's not a mile and 3/16 this really. She wants to run all day. So
yeah, I think a mile and a half is her trip. I really do.
I give her a big chance as well. I didn't put her in my first 4, but this is another one of those races where it gets a little deep pretty quick, and you've got some nice horses that may not make the selection box, but certainly merit positive conversations.
Let's before we wrap up, one more horse we should talk about here, Lord North for Gosden and Dettori. Obviously, his Champion Stakes is a throwout over. I mean, it says soft. That ground was more heavy than soft, in my opinion. But do you think that he can race effectively at a mile and a half, and can he get back to his excellent win way back in June in the Prince of Wales' Stakes?
And that's the day that he earned a free berth into this race. So it was a very easy decision for them probably this fall to come over here with this guy who is going to have a career best performance to win this race, because it's not his distance, as you just said. He wants a mile and a quarter, and I'm against him, but I respect him. But no, I'm not picking him. He's in too deep. He's in too deep at the trip. He lead at the 8th pole, fade to finish 3rd.
we agree on that. I don't think he's going to quite stay and see it out, but always dangerous connections to Gosselin and to Torrey. Great Breeders' Cup turf. Okay, maybe it's not great. I think there are a lot of really good horses, and it's a fascinating race. I think that's kind of the rule of the day with all these races. We're light on super duper stars this year, but we're heavy on really, really good horses and amazingly competitive deep races that are fascinating to look at on paper and should be really fun to look at on your television monitors or your computer. You can certainly do that at DRF Bets. They'll have live streaming video. You can make all your wagers there too. DRF Ticket Maker is the best in the business for putting together multi-race wagers. You can construct your wagers and plug them directly into your DRF Bets account without having to punch 10,000 tickets. It's going to be a great day of racing. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you have a lot of luck, and hope we do too, Steve.
Thank you very much. It's going to be a fun Breeders' Cup to look forward to, and we'll regroup at Del Mar in 2021 as well.
All right, sounds like a plan.
Bet the Breeders' Cup with the DRF app. The Daily Racing Form app is a highly rated, powerful tool that makes handicapping and wagering fast and easy, putting you in position to win big at the races. Register today to double your first deposit up to $250. Get the DRF app now.